So the answer of the allopathic medicine was, we'll just manage your symptoms. You're out of luck. That's your disease. You're going to die with it.
Sylvia, how did you find Carnivore?
How did I find it? You know what? I was, for a while, I was following all the influencers in the low carb world. And, you know, it was such a evolution of the movement from low carb to keto to zero carb. And then all of a sudden, those carnivore people started coming to those conferences. So one of the people that I found very interesting was Dr. Sylvia from the clinic in Hungary, Paleomedicina. And her twist on the carnivore diet was paleoketogenic diet. And so it was a carnivore diet with ketosis, with a restriction of proteins and a ratio of fat to proteins 2:1, and with a weekly consumption of organ meats. And that really spoke to me. And then she was actually addressing in one of those conferences chronic disease. And I believe her case study was rheumatoid arthritis. And that's what I was dealing with at the time. So I contacted the clinic in Hungary. At that time, they were doing the PEG 400 tests. So that was the gut permeability test with this interesting solution, sugar alcohol with like 11 different sizes of molecules. And you drink it. And then however many of those molecules make it to your blood will give you the level of gut permeability. And mine was through the roof. Where normal was somewhere here, my gut permeability was like somewhere there. So that was good enough for me painting to get like, let's do it, let's do this diet. While I was waiting for the results of the test, I decided to quit coffee because I know that that was going to be part of the diet. So I first suffered through coffee withdrawals. And I sort of got myself ready for the diet itself, which looked like a very challenging, and you had to be really like 100% austerity and really disciplined to make it work. At least I was committed to make it 100% accurate with all the ratios, with all the organ meats and ratios of the fat to proteins. So I first started giving up different groups of food. Then I started giving up coffee and tea, and then I was down to dairy, meats, eggs, butter, animal fats, and then I just turn it up to make it 100% paleoketogenic compliant. And in about 10 days, 85% of my symptoms went away. Like I was able to start walking without pain. And my rheumatoid arthritis was everywhere but in my spine. So just about every joint, including my jaws, and sometimes between my ribs were affected. All the joints of my feet, my ankles, my knees, my hips, my shoulders, every single finger joint was affected. And yeah, the recovery was super speedy. I could not believe it. I've been walking at that time. It was at least 5 years that I had chronic pain, and I could not take a step without feeling pain. And it's just in 10 days gone. And then I thought there was more to it. So I was like, you know what? The good news, you gotta tell people. So I started recording videos on YouTube, however bad quality they were. I was like, I'm just gonna talk about it because this is amazing. And then I thought, well, maybe I shouldn't just do my own experience because this is just one person. So I connected with Sean Baker. Back then it was Meat RX, and I got trained as a carnivore diet coach. They had this whole program and started coaching on his platform. That then got discontinued, but I was already wrote my own program and had my own platform where when people wanted specific, more relationship-based coaching, I was doing that. And the rest is a history.
Well, congratulations. That's awesome. And, it's testament to this way of eating that, you can get results in just basically days after starting, right?
Yeah, it's the question of gut permeability is, you know, the blessing in disguise is that the gut cells recover in about 28 days. So to restore the gut integrity is relatively fast. Now, depending on the history and the genetic blueprint, the retraining of the immune system and its behaviors, that may take longer. But yeah, in principle, the recovery from damaged, leaky gut happens very quickly. Maybe I should add also that the basic premise of the paleo-ketogenic diet and the philosophy of the paleo-medicina was that all autoimmune diseases result from increased gut permeability. And so you focus on addressing of sealing of your gut wall versus addressing immune system or your joints.
Like, just to take a step back, what kind of got you interested in looking into low carb and keto and that kind of thing before initially? So before you found out anything about Sophia Clements, and you were just trying the different diets, what kind of pushed you in that direction?
I was always interested in natural ways of healing. I grew up in Poland, and that was during the peak communism. So there was no such a thing like modern healthcare. And all we knew was like folk remedies, traditional remedies. Even if you got to the doctors themselves were employing more natural approaches to healing. And I remember, like, sometimes if we would go to like a village healers, like one of the things that they would make us use as a remedy was drinking animal fats with different concoctions in it. So there would be like, let's say, usually they would make you hunt for a wild animal and render fat from that animal, and then add that fat either to milk with some additional herbs, and that would be a majority of remedies. And so I grew up seeing it. My aunt was a herbalist. My father has in the attic, there was a whole bunch of dried herbs. So that was the world I knew. And when I moved to the United States, you know, when I had my phase of like, you know, going crazy for the modernity and the city and everything, and then I made a rapid turn. I was like, let me get back to the roots, what I knew worked and how it was. And I was always interested in the natural way of healing. Like, really, I understood that to be healthy, you have to strengthen the whole body. You don't go after a specific organ. You really have to address the body holistically as an entire unit. And with the Western medicine, there just isn't a philosophy. When I went to a allopathic doctor, what I heard was, well, there's nothing we can do about your condition. We can give you methotrexate. It will take away pain, but it will damage your liver. So on average, you will live shorter by 17 years. That is the standard protocol. Now, if you want to try a little lighter, you can start with, Tylenol. They start with Tylenol, then they give you high dose Tylenol that doesn't work. Then you get onto hydroxychloroquine and then methotrexate. And now we have different variations of all kind of drugs, but they all work the same. In different ways, they suppress immune system, the expression of the immune system. So the answer of the allopathic medicine was, we'll just manage your symptoms, and you're out of luck. That's your disease. You're going to die with it.
It's a pretty sad indictment, really, that, as medicine kind of improves or technology improves, we're going down the road of not actually, fixing any problems, just managing things, right?
Yeah, as I did some research into the Western medicine, it derived from emergency medicine. Majority of the Western medical approaches was developed during the wars. So it was, take a wounded soldier, patch them up, stitch them up, and put them back to combat. Now that's okay if you break your leg, if you have like some, open wound. But diseases that originate from lifestyle and a poor dietary choices or even things like bad emotion management can result in a chronic disease. Yeah, you cannot take a pill for it. You have to get to the root cause and address it at the root cause. And carnivore diet has that potential, because just to use the example of autoimmune conditions, so we have over 200 of them, and every day there's a new one that gets developed. They all originate in the leaky gut, where things that should not get into our bloodstream get into our bloodstream, and they interact in the immune system. And then depending on your genetic blueprint, yeah, maybe immune system will get sensitive towards your joint tissue. As I understand what happens with different expressions of autoimmunity, those undigested proteins and fragments of bacteria attach to different tissues, and they engage in something called a molecular mimicry. So immune system sees it as your own cells, because that protein or part of bacteria is attached to it, sees it as one unit, and develops antibody to the whole thing. And that's how autoimmune conditions are diagnosed. And it is also sort of really unhelpful way of looking at autoimmunity, because even holistic doctors will tell you, your own body attacks you. And then you're like, what am I supposed to do? Like, how is it happening that I'm attacking myself? Like, I don't have that bad of a relationship with myself. Like, what kind of take is this?
How do you eat on a day-to-day basis?
I'm currently back to the PKD, quite strict. So I eat twice a day for the most part. It's kind of a breakfast, lunch in one. Then I eat dinner. Mostly it's red meat, mostly my fat, mostly tallow. I have eggs in my diet as well. I love bacon and lard as well. Occasionally butter. Salt, collagen powder, bone broths. That's it. So I try to stay about 500 grams of meat, and double the amount. So rule of thumb, let's say 5 tablespoons of added fat to the meat that I'm eating.
That kind of breakfast lunch, that's kind of early afternoon?
Yeah, typically anywhere between 12 and 1. Mm-hmm. I have in the morning, typically I drink a raw egg yolk with collagen powder and warm water. So that's usually how I start my day. And I add also a tablespoon of tallow in it. In warm water, I blend it up, and that's how I drink it. So that is my kind of like a liquid calorie breakfast, if you want to look at it this way. It kind of looks, the texture is that of a latte. A flavor is sort of neutral, but it makes me feel great. So I keep doing it. I was really addicted to coffee, more so to the ritual of it and just fact of having something hot in the morning, something with like creamy. And I was looking for some sort of a replacement. So that's what I invented. And it tastes especially delicious when you add some coffee to it. It's really great. So for those of you that drink coffee, want to make it more carnivore, that is a great way of doing it.
Oh, nice. Yeah, I mean, that ritualistic is a good way of describing it. Things like most addictions, there's a very ritualistic part to it, right? Whether it's coffee or smoking or drinking.
Yeah, it's a huge emotional component to it. And most people drink coffee in like when we arrive at the point of that we need to get on the carnivore diet, we are usually 20 years or 30 years into the habit. So it is difficult to undo it. And I would say probably the most challenging cases that I deal with as a carnivore diet coach are the emotional eaters and people that are addicted to coffee and carbohydrates and processed foods.
In relation to coaching and the people you've worked with, when someone's getting started with carnivore, what are some of the bigger challenges that they might face?
Usually is the compliance. Usually is the compliance with the diet. In that a lot of people just life gets in the way. bad habit, years of bad habits, and then just the fact that you have to get through the valley of hell to, you know, free yourself from carbohydrate cravings. That period is usually challenging for many people. So it typically happens, it's the initial 4 weeks is okay. 5th week, but I noticed that between 6 and 7 weeks of the carnivore diet is almost like a sort of a relapse. So even when you think that you're off the carbohydrate cravings, off coffee cravings, 6, 7, sometimes 8 weeks is when it kind of is sort of a relapse, and then you have to have some sort of coping strategy to last. But that's where carnivore coaches are useful.
What are some tricks you've found that can help people with that compliance at the beginning?
Creating friction, so remove everything that could have lead you to the fridge and eat your favorite snack, or don't have the foods that are not compliant with the carnivore diet at home. And if you have to, you know, break your commitment to the carnivore diet, you have to, you know, get in the car and go somewhere. That delay between the desire and what you have to do to get to the food that you're not supposed to eat usually is enough to stop you from doing what you're not supposed to do. Stress is a very common thing that causes people to break their diet. And that's, unfortunately, you know, there's no good fixes because there are external stresses that you can't control. You just have to develop resilience. And when I get with clients to a point that, you know, I broke it because this and that happened, then, you know, the only thing you can do is to give support, get back in the saddle. It's okay. What's done, it's done. Let's develop a plan, and let's develop a plan how to work around the challenge, because that will inevitably happen again. So that we look for a strategy, either change of circumstances, or how you will deal with a particular person, or maybe take a break from attending certain things or going certain places. And that usually helps. Another thing is, when it comes to breaking of habits, is get yourself busy with something new. So if you're fighting with something, altering of your schedule. So for example, if you identify that between 4 and 6 is the time that you'll crave foods, very good time to go to the gym, take a walk, organize something that does not involve eating with someone else. And that is probably the most useful thing to power through cravings. And another thing is, what a lot of people that tried it, they'll figure it out on their own, is when the cravings ebb and flow. So they usually have the strongest grip on you in the first 20 minutes when you start feeling them, and after that they just lose their power. And if you can power through, and most people from their own experience will start noticing it, then every following craving is just weaker and weaker in intensity, and then it's over.
That is a really good thing to keep in mind. That it's only going to last for a window of about 20 minutes, and then it's going to be dissipate a lot. Have you ever worked with someone who just hasn't had results?
Yes.
With carnivore?
Yes.
Could you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, there are people, if they have taken a lot of medication for a really, really long time, particularly those immunosuppressants. There are cases, not all, but it takes really long time for the carnivore diet to make a dent. And sometimes I've had a couple clients, it took 1 year. And another client, and she had rheumatoid arthritis, and the other client had SIBO. It took 8 to 9 months and many failures. And then finally he contacted me. It happened. I healed. It took 8 to 9 months. And SIBO too typically relatively quickly responds to the carnivore diet. And that case was like really relentless. And he was quite good with the diet, and he was strict. He was. And it just took a long time. But I noticed with some of the clients, when they have severe cases of autoimmunity, there's very strong autoimmune psychological component to it. There's a lot of trauma that comes with certain autoimmune conditions, and yeah, oftentimes the childhood trauma, and that takes a long time to address, because they're not just nutritional deficiencies and the lack of integrity of the gut wall, but there's also the very damage the inside and a kind of self-hatred, and then it's just that to tackle that all together, it's much more challenging and takes a long time. It's sad to say, but emotional healing takes a lot longer than actually dietary changes and to see those effects. But as long as I've been doing it, so it's almost 4 or 5 years, one thing is for sure, the appropriate human diet is as little carbohydrate as possible. I'm not saying don't eat any carbohydrates if you don't need to, but the current trajectory that the humanity is on, carbohydrates, morning, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and snacks in between, that is not the way to go. That is a guaranteed chronic disease, oftentimes metabolic in nature. At around age of 35 to 40, there are major manifestations of chronic disease if we continue. Yeah, there's more and more younger people that I've noticed that are coming down with things like autoimmunity, even things like diabetic, pre-diabetic. It's just like I've had a client that was 29 years old with diabetes.
Speaking of that, I noticed a post on Twitter today that, or X, that was President Biden talking about, how there's something called shrinkflation, and all the like potato chips and Oreos and all this kind of thing. The price is the same, but the sizes are getting smaller, and he was talking about how I'm not going to stand for this, or we've had enough of this or whatever. And I was just thinking, that's the least of our problems, like taking the issue to the food companies, and this is not a political thing. It's just like, this is the least of our problems. It's just, we shouldn't be eating the stuff in the first place.
Correct. And we have a lot bigger problem as a humanity, as a global population. We have a lot bigger problem in that there's a very poor understanding of what nutrition is, what a good diet is, because there's been so much erosion of traditional ways of eating, and there's this constant bombardment with plant-based this, plant-based that people don't know. People really don't know what constitutes a healthy diet. And I see it in my workplace that a lunch of choice is some kale salad with a bunch of seeds and nuts, with like a tiny amount of feta cheese, maybe some a couple pieces of chicken, and swimming in the olive oil. But we all know that the olive oil have a canola oil added in it, and then few some other maybe pieces of fruit, like some caramelized pear, and that's a nutritious lunch. That is considered a nutritious lunch. Or I see coworkers like scanning. There's an application that you can scan the content of bars, snack bars. Okay, should you be even eating it in the first place, like as an option for lunch? And the conversation revolves around, this has this much sodium, no matter everything else, but this one has a little bit too much sodium, so I'm not eating it. There's also a conversation I hear in the playgrounds where mother will be discussing an option switching from regular milk to almond milk because my child is lactose intolerant. I mean, there's no such a thing as almond milk. No plant milk is a milk. It may have a color of milk, but that's where it ends. That's where the similarities end. And even pediatricians, I was actually trying to convince someone in the playground that maybe a raw milk A2 from the farm is a better option if there is lactose intolerance. And the pediatrician herself recommended cashew milk as a reasonable alternative.
So you're lactose intolerant, so you know, we'll take the milk out of your diet. Instead, we'll give you some poison, and
Right.
you know, I'm sure that's going to be much better for you.
Right. We will give you cashews that if you eat them raw would poison you.
In your workplace, when you see that, the sad thing is that, as you say, it's seen as nutritious. These people think they're doing the right thing, right? Everyone thinks they're doing, I've got this big salad and it's got only a little bit of fat in there and a little bit of this and a little bit of that. And I've got my olive oil on it. It's great, you know. I can't understand putting on weight, or I can't understand. So those people, when they're seeing you eating, you know, what's their reaction to your way of eating?
Oh, there's all sort of jokes. But you know what? I am able to influence people. Like there are people that are beginning to select more red meat for their diet. I was advocating very, very strongly my team to do a carnivore month in January. Some people went as far as doing low carb, but even that is definitely a move in the right direction. Yeah, I advocate a lot on my work. Like, don't get chicken, get steak, get pork chop, get something that has red meat, has those amino acids that really improve your cognitive function. That is really what you need. Another thing is that is almost insurmountable is this belief in olive oil and coconut oil. And saturated fat is what lines our brains. We evolved eating fat. And even if you look at the distribution of IQ across the people that eat saturated fats do better than where there is a high consumption of plant oils. And let's say, okay, technically olive oil and coconut oil are fruit oils, but they're still inferior to animal saturated fats that is almost identical to what our brain needs. And if you look at the behavior of the population, if they eat according to their traditional diet, the performance is noticeable. And again, if I say to people that I cook in lard, in tallow, I kid you not, people will ask me, what is tallow?
When I think about lard and tallow, when I was a kid, that's what we had for cooking with, you know, like that was always what was in the kitchen. And then at some point, it was in the 90s or something, at some point, then there was the, you know, the spray on oils that you would get from the fry pan and spray into the fry pan. And then, you know, it was then you can't use the sprays anymore. So then that changed to olive oil and vegetable oils and stuff. And yeah, it's just
Same
things have
here.
gone downhill.
Same here. My father had a ranch, so he was raising pigs and sheep and cows. So did my neighbors, and you couldn't extract. We had sunflowers, but you couldn't. There was no technology to extract oil from sunflowers, and in what quantities too. You would have to have fields and fields of them, right? Whereas you slaughter a single pig, the whole family of 4 eats for months and months, and you know it's really sustainable. And you know, if anybody saw how lard is made, you just basically take the skin of the animal and just let it warm it up, heat it up on the pan, and you have lard. That is the technology needed. A little bit of fire and some you know, some pot to store the fat, and that's it. Whereas, like, if you look at the processes of making seed oils, the traditional cultures just didn't have the technology to do it, and they weren't eating it. Even in very, very warm climates, there just wasn't a thing because you couldn't do it. You needed really large quantities of fat, you needed really of seeds, and advanced technology to squeeze them and extract them, and then process them to something that is edible.
I think when you think about the seed oils, when you think about all the processed foods and, you know, the alternatives that are coming out now and all this kind of thing, the way we would traditionally have eaten, we've suddenly gone, no, we need to change that. We need to manage our health. We need to make sure we're eating particular things. We need to manage this. And when we've taken control and started to manage things, that's when it's gone off the rails. That's when we've started to get sicker and sicker and sicker and sicker.
Right. And I would say there's something that we have to overcome collectively. There's also this this over-reliance on third-party authorities. This authority structure that they decide what we should be eating, how we should be eating, depending on interested parties that want to pursue certain things for profit. And we have I think collectively as a people, we have this illusion that there are those nutritional recommendations that in any way related to what the proper human diet should be. And it's all driven by other things such as profit, and not by what's appropriate human diet. No, that is the least of the focus. It is just what can sell and at the maximum margins. And I think partly that's why we have this huge push for plant-based foods, because you can make them cheaply in large quantities, ship them around the world, and they have long shelf lives. If you have a population that eats a meat-based diet, let's just say 80% of the diet is meat-based, it's going to be a culture and an economy of small farms, small vendors, people selling to each other, because you cannot ship that stuff. You cannot ship pork or steak around the world, process it in another country and sell it in another country and have it on the shelf for 6 months. That is just not going to happen. And so large corporations just don't have an interest. There's no business model for them to pursue there. And that's why it's not a part of the official education about nutrition.
Can you tell me for yourself, in the last 4 or 5 years, practically, day to day, how is your life? We've already talked about arthritis and stuff, but practically day to day, how has your life changed because of eating this way? Right.
Well, there were many different things that I wasn't aware that I thought was just part of my life. That was just that's what it is. I had a chronic constipation, idiopathic, diagnosed in the past, and there was just nothing I could do about it. And other than the more advice from the doctors was eat more fiber. And then only when I removed all the fiber from the diet, the constipation resolved itself to never come back. It was actually so profound that it's a typical thing with pregnancies that women experience constipation. And while I wasn't plant-based with my first child, I had that experience myself. However, after my first child, I went full carnivore and pretty much got through my pregnancy. The first trimester with the second pregnancy, I was 100% carnivore. Then I started doing a little bit of dairy. Dairy is also carnivore, but it was more in PKD. I was doing dairy and some fruit, mostly because my child was moving too much. And so one way in midwifery to make the child grow faster, you eat more fructose. It's an interesting thing. So when midwives want you to make your baby bigger, faster, they make you eat a lot of fruit. That also speaks to high fructose corn syrup being in everything. So that was my second pregnancy, but there was no constipation. Once it got healed with carnivore diet, it went away. Even when I added fruit, it did not have the same effect of my gut microbiome as to cause this constipation that I couldn't resolve with any means that were available to me. Other thing I was dealing with was allergies. Again, it was in today's society is just almost expected, or things like bloating after lunch or dinner. You just understand that that's how it is. Well, that goes away with the carnivore diet. You never get bloated. Allergies resolve themselves as your gut permeability goes away. Your allergies will go away. and a lot of skin issues will go away as well. I wouldn't say that it's a carnivore diet is a golden, it's a panacea for everything. That wouldn't be an accurate statement, but it is a foundation of a human diet. If it's not 100%, we should prioritize it. A minimum 80%. There should be red meat, eggs, butter, cheeses should be part of our diet, not the other way around. I would say I'll add also some of the social changes. Is we cook a lot more at home, which adds to a healthier way of eating by itself, because you know what you are eating. Eating out is just went away, and it's much more. It's more of a. That might be sometimes the social difficulty when your friends want to hang out and go different places, different restaurants, and you can't quite eat the Mexican cuisine, or no chance for Indian food, stuff like that. But other than that, overall, my health just increased so much more that I have no regrets. Before my first child, I had all my hormones tested. And the interesting thing is, I have my kids almost 3.5 years apart. My fertility got better as I got older after a couple of years of carnivore diet. So a typical thing is that there's a hormone measured called anti-Mullerian hormone, MAH, and that's your ovarian reserve. And it says it declines for women no matter what you do, especially after you turn 38, it's like a nosedive of MAH. So after was 4 years of 4 years of carnivore diet, my MAH actually increased. But the conventional belief is that once you start losing MAH, that's it. It's downhill. But I had the higher MAH at 41 than I had at 36.
Wow, that's very interesting.
If I were to coach women for optimal fertility, prioritize red meat, saturated fats, not a lot of alcohol, coffee. There's no benefits to alcohol. So unless you really have like some sort of a social, or like that's your way to relax, okay, here and there, but really no function in life, benefits for health. But minimize coffee, teas, all those herbal things that we're told that they're great for us. Prioritize clean water, meat, fats, quality salt, all the fancy stuff. Keep it at bay as an occasional thing, and your fertility will increase significantly.
So, Sylvia, do you have a YouTube channel?
Yes, it is a Big City Mom. It started as the objective of the channel at first was to bring back the traditional ways to a modern life. So whatever I remembered from my rural life in Poland was to, how I bring it to my children here in the middle of New York City, because they don't have the lived experience that I had. So I wanted to leave a legacy that when they grow up and they have, they're looking for ways to improve their life, where would they go if I'm not there? Where would they find it? So I started as sort of a kind of working mom strategies for better health, better lifestyle in wherever you are. And then as one of those strategies, carnivore diet was my topic, but then it became so popular and people started reaching out that the channel kind of went in more carnivore diet and carnivore living direction, and all associated types of diets. Like some people will reach out to me just to do very low carb, or they want specifically the paleo ketogenic diet. So believe it or not, there's many different versions and variations of the carnivore diet. And there's also people respond to it in so many different ways. So you really have to be attentive and tune in to a particular person to really design the diet well for them. But essentially, it started as a healthy living, whatever lifestyle in the modern world, and it kind of morphed into mostly carnivore content.
Nice. Well, I'll link to that in the description. And Sylvia, thank you so much for coming on and sharing your story with us. I really appreciate it.
Sure, it's my pleasure. It was great chatting with you.